Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It was called Human Best Friend, and as it starts, we're getting a voiceover from both Ortegas and Scotty. Essentially, they were both talking about how much they don't like the other one, but in a way that I guess was kind of professional sounding. Meanwhile, Captain Pike has noticed that everyone seems a little stressed, a bit on edge, and so he announces that he and the rest of Alpha Shift, mainly the bridge crew, will be taking shore leave. He plays everyone a video about a resort called the Cessna Grand, which is a tech-free zone on a planet with an intoxicating atmosphere that kicks in, allowing each patron to experience the resort differently, but in an inebriated state, basically. Now, the captain is set to host negotiations between warring factions of the Redaxians, but that isn't for 2 weeks, which gives them plenty of time to enjoy a quick vacation, come back and recuperate, and still have a week to prepare for the negotiations. So they take a shuttle down to the planet, and the atmospheric inebriation starts kicking in before they even disembark from it. Next thing we know, Ortegas wakes and finds her room trashed. We see a Tribble crawling around and Scotty in a Mugatu costume. Neither one of them remembers anything after landing and exiting the shuttle. Before they have time to figure anything out, Dendru, the administrator of the resort, comes to deliver them an envelope containing a message that came in for the captain. Before they have a chance to figure out anything aside from the fact that Scotty is inebriated and Ortegas is hungover, the resort manager Dendru shows up and gives Ortegas a paper envelope containing a message for the captain that came in, since he couldn't himself find the captain. We also see that for some reason Ortegas' arm is in a cast. The first thing they do is make for Spock's room, looking for Pike. Spock has no clue where Pike is and insists that he is inebriated, but other than talking a lot and claiming that he's hallucinating seeing Jim Kirk with him, he doesn't seem to be very inebriated. So he sends Ortegas and Scotty to check out Uhura's room because he thinks the captain might have gone there. Once they leave, Jim Kirk indeed does show up in uniform and gets a hug from Spock. At Uhura's room, we find that Uhura is inebriated and wearing a sparkly outfit. We can see that there's a huge party going on at her place as Ortegas and Scotty try to find out from her if she knows where Pike is. But she tells them that she doesn't know where Pike might be. While the conversation was happening, Scotty goes off on his own and Ortegas later finds him in a bar where she also finds Una, number 1, singing karaoke. And the song she's singing is Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart in Klingon, as well as Dr. Mbenga tending bar. He sends them both to a nearby tattoo parlor to find Pike, and yeah, he's there getting his arm tattooed and contemplating getting a face tattoo. When he reads the message, he learns that the diplomats that he has to negotiate the treaty between are going to arrive at Enterprise in the next 2 hours, not 2 weeks. So he tells Ortegas and Scotty to get the shuttle and gather everyone up and come back. So they leave to go get the shuttle, but someone has moved it, and the woman who runs the docking bay said that she gave a chip that's needed to run the shuttle to Scotty some hours before. Scotty has no memory of this, but he suggests using a tricorder to locate it, and even though it's a tech-free zone, they both deduce that Uhura probably smuggled one in. So they go back to her room. Uhura says she won't turn over her tricorder to them unless they clear their bad energy by apologizing to each other for their anger towards each other, which they do, after which Scotty soon locates the shuttle on the tricorder, but in the process of tossing it to Ortegas so that she can look at it, he accidentally tosses it over a rail and down to the ground below where it smashes. They realize that the security network at the resort has a hub in the central office and are determined now to go and hack into it to find the shuttle. But they realize they probably can't do that without help because Ortegas isn't a hacker and Scotty is messed up, so they go to find someone who they think is not messed up, and that's Spock, who, of course, is actually messed up. When they arrive at the central office and find no computer, Spock reasons that there's a plant there that he can mind meld with, and it in fact tells him where the shuttle is, as well as the fact that it's being protected by a group of thieves, prompting him to recommend that they find La'an and take her with them as muscle. So they leave him once again in the company of Kirk, whom Spock tells about the fact that he's never had a human best friend, before they sit down and talk. We then find that La'an has taken over a relaxation class, telling everyone that now it's a jiu-jitsu class. So Ortegas drags La'an out so that she can help them. They do find the shuttle, and La'an confronts the thieves, and in the process becoming their leader, who needs to show them about how to negotiate, so she convinces Scotty to give her his Hawaiian-style shirt, much to his chagrin, and bringing it to them as a reward. It turns out that the shuttle has been behind a billboard this whole time and is damaged. While there, they realize that the chip that they need is nearby, and in fact figure out that it's hidden in Ortegas' cast, right before they're kidnapped by a couple of masked ne'er-do-wells, complete with bags over their heads and everything. When they come to, they find that they are tied to chairs, and Scotty briefly thinks that they've taken his eyeballs. But they knock themselves over and end up being able to free themselves from the chairs. And Ortegas asks Scotty why she's not mad at him for blaming him for the state that the shuttle is in. And it turns out that it's because he grew up with 6 brothers and usually got blamed for things when things went wrong. And that was because usually it was his fault, so he just figured the same thing was happening again. And Ortegas discloses that she is to get in trouble for blaming her brother for things that weren't entirely his fault. At this point, Dendru shows up again, revealing that he did this to them, but only because they made him swear earlier not to let them go near the shuttle so that they wouldn't spend their vacation working, before suggesting that they stop by Room C. Room C, apparently, is the bingo hall, where Nurse Chapel is playing some hard bingo and threatening all the little old bingo ladies in the room. It escalates to the point where there's about to be a fight, but La'an and her new team of guys, one of them wearing Scotty's shirt, come in to join the fight, but Ortegas hauls her away as she cries, "Avenge me," as Scotty scoops up Chapel and follows along. Now everyone is back in the shuttle looking hungover. Number 1 is still wearing her feather boa from her karaoke escapade. And Pike did end up getting a face tattoo, which, by the way, in shape resembles the burn that he eventually gets in his accident that puts him in the beep chair. Pike tells everyone they are now representing Starfleet and that they have to be professional. Later, in the transporter room, they greet the visiting Redaxians while still struggling to overcome the effects of the inebriation. Ortegas goes to the shuttle to fix it but finds Scotty there already doing so. She starts to help him and also opens up, explaining that she was hard on Beto, her brother, because she wanted things to be hard for someone besides herself. She says she had wanted to be an engineer but never had the brain for it. Scotty has a similar story and talks about how he failed at piloting and ended up in engineering. So they kind of make up before Scotty takes a panel off of the console and finds a bomb inside, which now that he's touched it, he can't put down because it has reactive casing and it would immediately go off. So Ortegas runs to get help. She runs to the room where Pike is trying to deal with the negotiations and tries to get his attention but can't, so she whispers to Uhura about the bomb, who passes it on to the crew member next to her, and so on until the point where the whole message gets garbled and everyone thinks there's an avocado situation for some reason. So Spock at this point catches up with Ortegas, saying that he heard about the avocado problem but reasoned that it must actually be a bomb. He then finds a video of Ortegas and Scotty from when they were both intoxicated at the resort, telling their future selves that the shuttle's been messed with and that the key is in the cast, as well as not to bring the shuttle back to the Enterprise, although of course now it's too late for that. Spock figures out what the bomb is made of and says that an explosion would be catastrophic, and that there's only one chance to save the day before it goes off. Scotty has to fly the shuttle off into the distance, but he can't really fly it because he can't use his hands, so Ortegas goes with him as the pilot. And Spock says he'll attempt to transport them out of there before the bomb actually blows. So he goes to the transporter room to start setting the controls, and as he wishes that he had a second pair of hands, who else is there but Kirk? Spock thinks it's still a hallucination, but Kirk slaps him to prove that he's real. So, of course, he does end up being able to transport them off before the bomb explodes, and when the bomb explodes, it seems to set off fireworks, which back in the delegation, where Pike has apparently managed to offend one of the sides in the conflict, everyone can see the fireworks through a window, and it turns out that the Redaxians see it as a tribute to their entire species and are happy to begin the actual negotiations. Ortegas and Scotty, of course, make it back to the transporter room alive and well, except for the fact that one of Scotty's fingers was blown off, which is interesting because, of course, Jimmy Doohan, who played Scotty in the original series, is missing a finger or two because of his military service. Spock tells Kirk that he's happy for the time that they spent together talking, as Ortegas and Scotty leave, with Ortegas saying hello to Kirk, which makes Spock realize that he was really there. At which point Kirk explains that he was also on vacation on the planet and that he was glad to run into Spock. As the episode ends, everyone is sitting in the bar, sharing their experiences and filling in Ortegas and Scotty on what happened with them. Apparently, They went to a costume party trying to talk to Pike and had to put on loner costumes. Ortegas at one point had something called a Dragon Ball that was supposed to be a drug for the whole party, but she and Scotty ended up taking the brunt of it. We learned that the saboteur has been caught and that they were a Redaxian militant who wanted to mess up the negotiations. We find that Dr. Mbenga has gotten much better at bartending, and Chapel suggests that the crew make this a yearly retreat. For this episode, as the credits rolled, we got more footage of number one singing Total Eclipse of the Heart in Klingon over footage of the crew getting wild, and that's where the episode ended. So I have a few notes on this episode that I want to go over, and it's, going to go a long way to explain what I thought of it. At the beginning of the episode, we see Ortegas put duct tape over one of Scotty's console alarms, and I thought, duct tape? Really? Then, I don't understand why they would even go to a drunk planet. I mean, I can understand going to a resort, going somewhere where you can let loose and maybe, have a few drinks or whatever, but why would you go to a planet where you're going to be inebriated the entire time? I can understand why a person would do that if they want to be inebriated 24/7 for a while, but that's just not characteristic of a Starfleet crew, if you ask me, and I don't see why they would actually do it. But anyway, here we are. There were tribbles, which is mind-blowing because, of course, tribbles are a nuisance, so why would anyone have one? They explain away Ortegas having a cast on her arm as opposed to just having had her arm fixed by saying that she didn't want her arm fixed, which, of course, doesn't make any sense. Every time they go to visit someone's room, they're behind a regular door, on a hinge with a doorknob and everything. Why? At one point, Kirk says he wants to order fries. Of course, then there's the whole thing about singing Total Eclipse of the Heart in Klingon, which I have to say, congrats to Rebecca Romaine for learning to sing in Klingon. It was pretty impressive. But it's like, really? Singing in Klingon wasn't enough? They had to make it Total Eclipse of the Heart. At one point, one of the characters says, "Cool, man." Really? Why didn't they just ask the hotel people to look on their security cameras to find the shuttle? Why did they even have this problem of trying to find the shuttle? How did Spock mind meld with a plant? Seriously? And what are they doing with this whole bromance between Spock and Kirk? Should we even call them that? Maybe we should just call them Spirk or Kirok. Kirok? Anyway, why did they even confront those thieves on their own? Why didn't they use hotel security or the planetary authorities? Why were they playing bingo? And why were there Golden Girls aliens in the room? These older alien ladies that were dressed like Golden Girls from Earth. Why? Why was Kirk in uniform if he was at the resort for vacation? And then why was he on the Enterprise afterwards? Why would Scotty have a broken finger after coming through the transporter? Why would the costumes that people were wearing to these parties have been reused when they have replicator technology? And on that note, why was he annoyed about giving up his shirt, which he could just re-replicate? I really don't understand what they're doing over at this show. It seems like they think they're writing for Lower Decks. And I'm forced to wonder if that's because Tandy Newsome is part of the writer's room, and she comes from Lower Decks. I grew to like Lower Decks after first being very annoyed that it was a goofball comedy. And that's fine and everything, but why is the live action show doing Lower Decks episodes? They said that this season was going to be better than last season, that last season was the way it was partly because of the writer's strike, and that they had a chance to write really good episodes for this season. And, the first one was pretty good. The second one, while I didn't love it, was at least serious. But this one, they just went slapstick with it. And I don't understand why. I mean, Star Trek has always had some humor in it. And I have to say, I do enjoy seeing the characters behave in ways that are out of character to a certain extent, but they just go way over the top. And, why does it have to be all the characters at once? Why don't they pepper these things throughout the season with one character at a time? It's just, I don't understand why they do these things. There was an element of, exploring the human condition, examining the human condition, in the fact that we got some character stuff with Ortegas and Scotty, but, it was very boilerplate and very non-monumental and just the bare bones sort of level of human condition examining. And it's just very disappointing because, where is this series Measure of a Man? Where is this series The Inner Light? I don't understand what they're doing. I really don't. Was it an entertaining hour of television? Yes. Did I enjoy some of the fun stuff? La'an saying, "Avenge me," and, Chapel getting crazy over bingo, and, Pike trying to conduct negotiations while inebriated with a face tattoo, which, by the way, he does get removed at the end. Yeah, kind of. But, like, this show is not supposed to be a Saturday Night Live skit version of Star Trek. It's supposed to be actual Star Trek. And, it's fine to pepper in humor and wacky stuff here and there. The other shows did it, but they just take it way over the top, and I don't enjoy it greatly, especially given that we're only getting 4.5 seasons, and each season only has 8 episodes. Like, I've said this before, and other people have said it. If you're going to do these things, that's great, but can you make it 1 or 2 episodes a season out of 20? Not 1 or 2 episodes a season out of 8, so that we can have real Star Trek content the rest of the time, and we can get some good Star Trek content that examines the human condition and has something to say that's worth being said, that's worth saying. It's just a shame that they keep squandering the time that they have with these characters and in this universe with these goofball episodes that, okay, are entertaining, but are not substantive and are not intellectually stimulating or, intellectually valuable. It's really just very, very sad that they keep doing this. And, not only that, but within all of this, they did this thing with Kirk and Spock, which, as I said, should we call it Spirk now? Should we just call it Spirk? Because they have like a bromance going on. And yeah, they were really good friends. But they're cheapening what that relationship was by making it this bromance kind of thing and playing it for laughs, with the whole, "Oh, do you want a hug? You're imaginary. Oh, I told you so many things. Oh my goodness." Just, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And, it's just another brick in the wall of there's no way that you can consider these characters to be the same characters that we've seen in the original series and the original series films, because they just don't line up, and they can't line up at this point because they've changed them so fundamentally and so irrevocably. And it's just really, really disappointing. And, we have a puppet episode yet to come, which may or may not be the same episode in which we're apparently going to get another visit from Trelane, which is going to mean that whatever episode that is, it's going to have wackiness. So, let's hope it's the same episode as the puppets, because that would mean there's only one instead of at least 2 more wacky episodes. I'm just not happy with this episode and the show in general, unfortunately. But that's really all there is to say without repeating myself. So I'm going to get out of here, but I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.